They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the program this morning. How you doing? How's everybody doing out there? You have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality where we are building a liberty machine. And it is, Thursday. And the legislative session has recessed for a couple of weeks. They're going to come back in about 2 weeks and what's called a sine die. So that's what we're waiting on now. And, of course, during this 2-week process, you're going to have some people are going to be reviewing bills, and maybe there is some sort of, maybe there's a problem here, a problem there. That's why they leave this little buffer period, little neutral period. So if they need to, they can come back and fix something. That's the point of all of this. But it was the last day of session, at least in the House. It was not without some entertaining debates, let me tell you. In my opinion, some offensive debates, but that's, from the Democrats. Let's take let's take the Bible out of context, try to shame people into not voting for the rule of law. Anyway, we'll talk about that. That was Democrat Godfrey is her name. By the way, that in the gallery there were a lot of people who were Hispanic who were in the gallery. There was a lot of, from what I could tell, Hispanic media was there because they had cameras. They were interviewing. I even got a photo of them interviewing everybody after the fact, after the vote. There's a lot of activists there who were not wanting this bill to pass. Of course, what we're talking about is State Representative Brandt Smith, Senator Gary Stubblefield's bill that would ban sanctuary cities. It passed yesterday. It is on the way to the governor's desk. I understand the governor has said that he intends to sign this piece of legislation, which is really good. That is great news. Thank you, Asa Hutchinson, for saying that you're going to sign this bill because it's a good bill. It's common sense. And it certainly is not a solution in search of a problem because we clearly have a problem in the country right now. And if all of our other states around us have passed bills banning sanctuary cities, that would mean Arkansas could potentially become a magnet, meaning there would be natural migration into Arkansas based on sanctuary cities being a possibility. So the bill is SB 411. It passed the House yesterday with 69 votes. And I actually, were there some pairs on there? Because I thought it was more. Are the pairs listed in this final tally here? Anyway, 69 votes. I thought it was more like 71. Yeah, I think it was 71 votes and 20, because it says 22 were against, but I think the actual was 24 against because I think there were two pairs on the desk. So anyway, bottom line is the supermajority Republican legislature, the Republican House specifically, held firm. They held up to the pressure. They rejected these notions that this was going to cause some sort of, racial profiling. All this does is prevents our cities from doing something that is outside of the scope of federal law, saying we're not going to cooperate. And effectively what this means, folks, is it doesn't really mean anything's going to change for the illegal immigrants who are in Arkansas now. Unless, of course, you are doing something illegal, and then it might. You know what I mean? That it might. Or if ICE decides to come into Arkansas. Let's say ICE decides to come into Arkansas and say, you know what? This pocket, this area, this geographic area of Arkansas is, you've got some bad spots or some hot spots, or maybe there's some, just this, crime. Like you had that illegal immigrant up in northwest Arkansas that just opened fire. It was a routine traffic stop. And just opened fire on the sheriff's department. I mean, do you remember that video? We gave you that video. We covered it on the news here. Anyway, so but effectively nothing's really going to change here. But if ICE were to come in and say, this is a spot we want to focus on, we're just saying that the local city can't say we're not going to cooperate with you. And I feel like that's common sense considering the problem that we have. This is a multiple decade problem where, again, both parties have benefited from illegal immigration, and yet we have the middle class that hasn't. We have our wages that haven't benefited as well. And so, it's a big issue. It's one of the reasons President Donald Trump was elected, was because this was such an important issue with the American people and the people of Arkansas. Let's go to State Representative Brandt Smith on the floor of the House yesterday presenting his bill, and then we're going to just listen to the rest of the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, I'm bringing Senate Bill 411 to you today for your affirmation, your vote of confidence in what we're trying to do. It's an act to prohibit municipal sanctuary policies within the state of Arkansas. This bill solely addresses sanctuary city, not immigration policy. It is about following federal law. That's what it does. In 2018, Custom Border agents seized 282,000 pounds of cocaine and 2,400 pounds of fentanyl. That alone is enough to kill the entire population of the United States. In addition, 248,000 pounds of meth and 6,500 pounds of heroin have been seized. That's a total of 1.7 million pounds of narcotics in 1 year. If death and addiction aren't the causes sufficient enough for us to comprehend the magnitude of this issue, consider also the strain it puts on our economic infrastructure. The millions spent on health care and rehab treating those whose lives have been impacted by these issues as a result of not securing our borders or establishing in the future sanctuary cities within the state of Arkansas is a problem. Our immigration system is broken, but this bill doesn't address immigration issues. That's a federal issue. This bill addresses sanctuary status in the state of Arkansas. Our laws are not being enforced, and our citizens, the very people we stand in this chamber to represent, are tired of it. After 30 years of promises by both political parties, promises have not been kept. People are weary. You see, adherence to our laws is the bedrock to a functioning democracy. The primary function of government, whether on the state or local level, is the safety and security of our people. It was brought up in committee that this bill might get us into trouble with the feds. In fact, every state around us has passed similar legislation. One witness testified that if we support this bill, we're going to be sued. I don't like threats like that. I don't think anyone in this room likes to be threatened like that, and yet that is what we heard. Congress is now considering a bill introduced to strengthen the interior enforcement of our immigration laws by allowing state and local governments to enforce federal immigration laws. This bill, Senate Bill 411, simply prohibits sanctuary policies. It defines what a municipal sanctuary policy is in subsection B. It also provides a penalty for the law in subsection C. As each of you already know, sanctuary policies defy federal law, which our city, county, and state governmental bodies are bound to comply with. It prohibits profiling. It prohibits profiling. We don't have to profile individuals that are misbehaving or committing criminal acts, we know when they're taken into custody whether or not they have committed a crime. Yesterday in committee, one of the oppositions to this bill said it was a solution looking for a problem. If I've heard that once, I've heard it 1,000 times during my 3 terms down here. It blows my mind that people can still not see what's happening around us.
He's exactly right.
Within our state, the northern border, and the southern border. You may be walking around with cancer and not be able to see it. That doesn't mean you don't have a problem. Tell that to the families I've spoken with over the last few weeks and months whose loved ones have been in accidents all over the state of Arkansas. Some have endured injury, some have lost loved ones, someone who was here illegally, who had no liability insurance, was not arrested, and never showed up in court. Solution looking for a problem? I don't think so. Tell the mother and dad of the 13-year-old girl in Florida last week who was riding her bicycle to school when she was run over and killed by an individual who was here in our country illegally. Solution looking for a problem? I don't think so. Tell the family in Alabama whose 12-year-old daughter was brutally raped a week ago or so by a man who had previously been deported twice. That little girl will never be the same. A solution in search of a problem? I don't think so. Tell the angel moms in Arkansas whose son was killed in a wreck caused by a person who was in the U.S. illegally. Thousands of American citizens are dead as a result of people who came here illegally. A solution looking for a problem? I don't think so. This doesn't take into account hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Americans who have died or are currently struggling with addiction as a result of drugs brought across our borders and into this country by individuals whose first crime was to come across the border illegally. A solution looking for a problem? I don't think so. And with this explanation of Senate Bill 411, I ask for a good vote.
Representative Clowning.
That is State Representative Brandt Smith, and he's doing an excellent job there because that's what the left says. We don't have this problem in Arkansas. Yeah, but we have it in other cities across the country. I mean, it's in order to believe the Democrat, liberal, progressive logic here, you just have to assume that somehow trends in America only stay localized. Oh, well, that's just a trend. Right, that's just a trend in California or in New York. It's not going to happen here. What a naive. It just really shows you that they don't care. Like they really just oppose the policy. You know what I mean? They just oppose. They have a policy disagreement, and they try to use any argument they can to essentially stop this from becoming a reality. It's a very simple bill. It really doesn't mean, I don't think, very, very, very little will change for the illegal immigrants who are in our communities right now, because this is not the state trying to enforce federal immigration law. It's just saying, you know what, this is a problem. We have an illegal immigration problem, and we want to make sure that if and when the federal government, they're doing it right now. The federal government is in the process of trying to deal with this onslaught at the border. But at some point, when we get the border secure, we're going to turn inward, and we're going to have to figure out what's going on. Now, does that mean there's mass deportations? I don't think so. I really don't. I don't think that's ever going to happen because I just don't see logistically how. Now, violent criminals, absolutely. Lawbreakers, absolutely. But at some point, that's going to happen. And when it does, matter of fact, I was saying yesterday, I think that the sanctuary city issue is going to be very similar to what Ronald Reagan had to do with the air traffic controllers. And so the idea of removing federal money from cities like San Francisco or New York and that sort of thing is a real possibility here because they are refusing to cooperate with the federal government when it comes to our immigration policies and immigration laws. And we're just saying, Brandt Smith just saying, the Arkansas legislature, thankfully, and now the governor who's going to sign this, thank you, Asa Hutchinson, for signing this, they're just saying, hey, we're not going to let Little Rock say or proclaim, if you're an illegal immigrant, you're welcome in the city of Little Rock, because we're not going to cooperate with federal authorities when it comes to immigration. We're not going to let you set up a sanctuary city like some of these far leftist states are doing. And yet, the Democrat Party here in Arkansas are for sanctuary cities. I'm just going to say it. I think they're for sanctuary cities. I think they agree. Listen, the Democrat Party is dwindling in this state to the point that the only people left on the ship are the diehards, are the ones that truly believe that we should be forced to put all of our money into one pot and then have the government divided up equally. Okay, I mean that's and this is a case where, we have a if you want to translate that to immigration. We have the far left in this country that believe in open borders, okay? And we're going to listen to Megan Godfrey's speech, State Representative Godfrey, at some point, and she invokes the Bible. She says that, this is against Christianity to pass this. But if you really listen to what she says, I don't see how you can take anything from her speech other than she believes in a world where governments don't have the authority to set borders and control who comes in and out of their own country. And that's a radical leftist idea. That is a very prominent idea on the progressive left, not just in Arkansas, but in New York and California and these other places. We're going to take a break. We're going to reset. Very good. Very, very proud of the Arkansas Republicans in the House, the Arkansas Republicans in the Senate, that made this a reality, and Senator Gary Stubblefield and Brandt Smith. Thank you guys for doing this and being willing to take the slings and the arrows that are coming and will continue to come. Back in a minute.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
I got to tell you, William Barr, okay? William Barr was in front of Congress yesterday. He was supposed to be talking about budgetary matters, but that didn't really seem to happen. More people just wanted to talk about Robert Mueller. I thought that was pretty funny, especially when did you see where he said that he's investigating the investigators leading up to the FISA and the FISA abuse and everything that we know about now that's pretty much out there. I can't imagine the look on William Barr's face when he, first got to the job and started analyzing everything that went on before he got there. I mean, it's just incredible. He's saying that the 4-page summary is the bottom line, and Mueller and his team decided they didn't want to see it. They trusted William Barr to summarize what the report said, saying the report's going to be out. It's going to say exactly what the letter says.
In Arkansas, every single hour there is a politician not getting what they want. For some, it's an absolute nightmare. The sleepless nights wondering if progress will ever come. Lying awake pondering how to grow government in this political climate. Asking questions like, why don't my constituents want to pay a few cents more in taxes? Everyday politicians feel abused and neglected. These politicians are starving for power. They're hungry, confused, and they don't understand why no one seems to care. Will you be a patriot and commit today to help these poor, starved for power public officials? It's simple. All you have to do is commit to stay silent and never dissent or stand in the way of your politicians' rise to power. Never speak up or get engaged to stop the growth of government. By committing to these simple steps, you will ensure the life of your politician will be filled with contentment and the respect they are desperately seeking, as well as campaign contributions from lobbyists.
This message brought to you by Aristocrats Serving Arkansas.
PHP Parody. Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, folks. So the governor has said that he's going to sign Senator Gary Stubblefield's bill that would ban sanctuary cities in Arkansas, or let's just say this, it gives the state the authority to just cut off funding to a city if they adopt sanctuary policies. The Attorney General is tasked with finding out whether or not that is the case, whether or not a city is in violation of this law. So several hours after this bill passed, the governor, according to the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, said that he spoke with Senator Gary Stubblefield, and Stubblefield agreed to amend the law in a future session. And the governor just wants an addition of, in order to do this, you have to have probable cause, meaning local law enforcement has to have probable cause. Now, listen, I don't think this is, his concern was racial profiling, which, let's just be honest, is something that's what the far left says about anything when it comes to immigration, racially profiling. This has nothing to do with racial profiling. Arkansas has a law against racial profiling already. We already have that, where you're not supposed to do that, okay? But if you're law enforcement out there right now and you're listening to this program, you know exactly the interactions that you have with people. When you ask someone for their ID as a part of a routine incident that you're policing, okay? For example, is it bad? Is it bad? Is it racially profiling? I'm pretty sure the Arkansas legislature has passed a law this session that says if you are called for jury duty and you show up for jury duty and the court finds that you've been called for jury duty and that you are an illegal immigrant, that you're not you're not here lawfully, then we can now, in Arkansas, we can take that piece of information and give it to the county clerk so that they can make sure that that person's name is not registered to vote. Now, that makes perfect sense, right? Why we needed a law to do this in the first place, I don't know. It just shows you how, well, we got to have a law to make sure that they can turn that information over. But, is that bad? Is that somehow, racially motivated? No, it's not racially motivated. You put out a blanket call for jury duty, and people showed up, and then you discovered that this person's not a citizen, and you're like, oh, okay, well, that person's free to go, but then we're going to take this information, and we're going to hand it over to this other department and make sure that this person who got called for jury duty is also not on the voter rolls. Doesn't that make perfect sense? And the difference is there are some counties or cities that will use driver's licenses. They will call jury duty based on driver's licenses and call jury duty based on whether or not you're registered to vote. Some people do one or the other. Some people do a combination of the thing. My point is, folks, we either have a problem or we do not have a problem. And everybody being so hypersensitive, we're only hypersensitive because the left is defining terms like racism. The left is defining terms like bigot. And they are extremely broad in their definitions. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
So all of this stuff, the cover-up, it's now a William Barr cover-up if you're a leftist. They think somehow that he's covering up for the president, and now they're going to go after his tax returns, and it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. But, hey, I got news for you. We have right now an exclusive on the phone. I want to introduce you to an author. He's the author of the Mueller Report, the complete and final findings against President Donald J. Trump. His name is Kevin Pryslak. Kevin, welcome, sir. How are you this morning?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, sir. So the author of the Mueller Report, this book, what can you tell us? What led up to you writing this particular piece of literature?
Well, I was completely fascinated by the whole endeavor of what was going on in reference to the Russia investigation and the Mueller Report. So I did long, extensive months' worth of research, and I was able to actually get my hands on the report, and therefore I was able to condense it to 262 pages. I left out some pages simply because it had top-secret government information, and unlike Adam Schiff, I believed it was my duty as an American to keep that private.
I like it. So we've been going over that. Now, first of all, people can get your book, The Mueller Report, The Complete and Final Findings Against President Donald J. Trump. The book is what? How many words is it? 1,064. Is that right?
Yes, approximately. Well, definitely 1,064 words, but they're very well thought out words. It's not just words on a page. It took a long time to come up with those words.
A long time. How many blank pages are in this book?
Approximately 245.
So the Mueller Report, the complete and final findings against President Donald J. Trump, there's 200 plus pages that are just blank, huh?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. I mean, after doing exhaustive research, we discovered that there was just nothing there. So our findings were no obstruction, no collusion, and fake news.
I really appreciate, Kevin, the humor behind this and why you decided to do this. I mean, and I think this book, let me ask you this, is this book, just kind of out of the frustration that I think a lot of Americans have felt over the last 2 years? It seems like instead of just accepting the will of the American people, we have, bad actors who just wanted to try to nullify the 2016 election results.
Yeah, no, it was out of frustration, and to make matters worse,
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, so, man, we got a lot. We're covering a lot of news right now. If you're just joining us, the Anti-Sanctuary Cities Bill passed in Arkansas yesterday. The governor says he is going to sign it. I do have some breaking news right now. 20 minutes ago, out of London, according to the BBC, WikiLeaks co-founder Julian Assange has been arrested at the Ecuadorian embassy in London. Apparently, Ecuador's President Lenin Moreno said it withdrew Mr. Assange's asylum after his repeated violations of international conventions. WikiLeaks tweeted that Ecuador had acted illegally in terminating Mr. Assange's political asylum in violation of international law. Folks, the timing of this is suspicious. From what I can tell, if you want what I think has happened here, this is just my gut, my first reaction. I could be wrong here. This may be an attempt by London to put pressure on Trump to not declassify FISA. If they now have Assange, this is an attempt possibly because if Trump declassifies FISA, apparently the Great Britain and our other allies are going to be extremely embarrassed by what they did to try to stop President Trump from winning the 2016 election. Anyway, we'll give you more news on that as it develops, but that is the news. If you're just joining us, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has been arrested at the Ecuadorian embassy in London. That is not good news, in my opinion. Folks, I want to introduce you to Elizabeth Johnston. She's the author of Not on My Watch, How to Win the Fight for Family, Faith, and Freedom. Elizabeth, welcome to the program. How are you?
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be with you.
Absolutely. So you are, I hear in your bio, or I'm reading in your bio here, a traditional values activist, a publisher of activistmommy.com, and a concerned mother of 10 children. So congratulations on the 10 children. That's incredible. So what are you concerned about?
Oh, the radical leftist Marxist attack on our values. We have children now being stolen from their parents by the state because parents do not support their kids ingesting non-FDA drugs to undergo a so-called sex change. We have 3,000 babies a day being murdered through abortion. We have pornographic and gender-bending sex ed in our schools through Planned Parenthood and Human Rights Campaign in our schools. Radical leftist lobbies that should not be in our schools, taxpayer-funded schools at that, teaching our children values that are against how we raise our children. That's not what we send our kids to school for. We send our kids to school to learn reading, writing, and arithmetic. These are just a few of the radical Marxist issues that we are fighting and that as parents we are concerned about on a daily basis.
You know, you mentioned education. Are you a school choice person? Do you think that may be some of the answers here?
Absolutely. It would be better than what we're doing right now. I personally am a homeschooling mother and highly encourage homeschooling for those who can. But for those who are in the school system and are not making the homeschool choice, yes, school choice would definitely be a better option.
Yeah, well, I just mentioned that our in my state of Arkansas, which we're broadcasting across right now, we had no luck with school choice this year. The educational industrial complex, as I call it, they made sure to not get any progress at all with school choice, and so that's extremely frustrating. You know, you mentioned these drugs that some parents, and this is happening across the country, where apparently it's not child abuse to give kids hormone blockers when, quote, they've decided that they want to be a different sex or a different gender. How's that not child abuse, Elizabeth?
Yeah, kids can't get in a tanning bed, but they can ingest non-FDA approved drugs that are going to alter them for life. Not quite sure how this is not medical malpractice. My husband is a medical doctor. And I'm telling you, this is medical malpractice, and it's one of the craziest medical schemes that has been foisted upon our nation ever in our history.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's. I guess I just don't understand. I mean, we have so many people that want to define their own reality in spite of the idea that sex is biological. And because of that, they're willing to, like you said, alter somebody's, a physical state for the rest of their life, do damage to them for the rest of their life, and they're saying, well, that's okay. That's one thing where you can really just say a lot of people are blind to what our society is becoming. I've talked a long time. We're talking with Elizabeth Johnston. She's author of a book called Not on My Watch, How to Win the Fight for the Family, for Family, Faith, and Freedom. I've talked for a long time. I guess this is I'm going to my 10th year in radio. I've talked for a long time about how there is this moral decay from within, and it's a slow moral rot. It seems to be accelerating, but then you do have you do have pockets of hope. One of the things when you mention abortion and Planned Parenthood is, for several years now, you have these pregnancy resource centers or help centers that are going out there. They're making relationships with these young women who are in a very confusing, scary time, and they're giving them a free ultrasound, and then these women are choosing life, and then and so that's a good thing, right?
Absolutely. And for 20 years, I've raised my children on the front lines of abortion clinics. We go out and pray and offer help and hope and free ultrasounds and pregnancy tests and whatnot. And we have been blessed to see many lives saved because of this. And, of course, a lot of people are seeing that modeled in the movie Unplanned that has been out now for 2 weekends. They are watching how believers in Jesus Christ who are outside these abortion clinics being the hands and feet of Jesus, which is where I believe that in 2019 Jesus very well might be. if he were here walking on this earth outside of an abortion clinic where where hurting people are going in and out and making a choice to pay someone to execute their child. We have been blessed to experience what it's like to rescue a child, to hold a baby in your arms that you were instrumental in saving. And so that's really exciting. We're excited about how God is using this movie Unplanned, and I share some of the stories of how we've seen babies' lives saved in my book, Not on My Watch.
Wow, that's fantastic. So you've been doing this. I mean, is this your first book? Let me ask you that, Elizabeth.
This is my first book. My family and I have been pro-life activists all my married life. But as far as the activist mommy goes, that platform has only started 2 years ago. It was very unexpected, never intended on being a public figure. I've been a diaper bag carrying homeschool mom for 20 years. This was very organic and fast, and really when Obama issued the transgender bathroom directive in the public schools, and I knew that grown men were going to be in the dressing rooms and shower rooms of our daughters, I no longer recognize my country, and said I've got to get off the sidelines and on the front lines of this battle. I'm very frightened for what my children and my future grandchildren are going to grow up in. And so I filmed my first little vlog video, and the rest is history. Lo and behold, 70 million video views later, there was a hunger in our culture for a bold and biblical answer to the social and moral issues of the day.
Wow. I think you're exactly right. And what I also think is, I think there's a lot more people that agree with you and me than what the media allows to get out. You know, they have a blockade on the truth. I mean, I think that's why, honestly, that's why President Trump won. And that's why the media was so shocked, because they'd spent 18 months telling everybody that Hillary was going to be the next president. We're seeing the fact that the traditional way of communicating, you mentioned your video got 70 million views. The traditional way of communicating with the media, being able to control what we think and how we perceive events, they're becoming more irrelevant by the day.
You know, social media is the Roman road of today. It is unquestionably changed the landscape and given us an opportunity that we did not have because of, as you say, the leftist media blockout that we have been experiencing for many years. I have been able to do what I've done from the comfort of my home. I am not a career woman, and I have been able to influence culture just as an ordinary mom, and that is what my book, Not on My Watch, inspires ordinary moms and dads and grandparents to do, is to influence culture right where they are in their sphere of influence. For instance, when Teen Vogue magazine was teaching kids how to sodomize one another in fashion magazine, my husband built a little bonfire for me out in the backyard, and I burned a copy of Teen Vogue magazine and was ruthlessly mocked and called a Nazi book burner. That video was viewed 15 million times. And 5 months later, Teen Vogue went out of business, a publication that has been in print since I was a little girl. One person can make a huge difference if we're willing to not be bullied by the left. Yeah, wow, that's incredible.
Well, Elizabeth Johnston, really appreciate you coming on the program. Again, she's the author of Not on My Watch, How to Win the Fight for the Family, Faith, and Freedom. Elizabeth, thank you. Keep up the good work, and let's stay in touch.
Thanks so much. God bless you.
All righty. God bless you. Elizabeth Johnston, everybody. All right, we're going to reset here. Going to take a break. Going to be back. Going to bring you more of coverage of the 92nd General Assembly. The session ended yesterday. They did pass the Anti-Sanctuary Cities bill, and we'll bring you more audio and debate from the House floor when we come back.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. Are you a conservative-minded young person and want to let the world know about it? Are you tired of rolling your eyes as your professor regurgitates progressive, PC, neo-Marxist nonsense? Then you should interview on Conduit News Radio's Young Conservative segment and tell us about why you believe the way you do. Tell us how you came to be a conservative and what are your views on government. Now, if you're worried that your neo-Marxist professor may also be a right-wing talk radio listening masochist, then names can be changed to protect the innocent. It's the Conduit News Radio Conservative Future segment. To be interviewed, call 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
They try and put out a humor book, which is, typically what I do. And Amazon didn't find it too funny, and they suppressed my account. So the only place you could actually get this book is bnn.com. So bnn.com is the only place that you could actually get the Mueller report.
Wow, really? So Amazon won't even allow you to put it? That's incredible. Even though it's satire, that's ridiculous.
Yes, I let it be known that it was satire. It was mostly blank pages. It was a humor book. And that wasn't good enough for them. So they suppressed my account. They won't sell my book. And so it's time to make bn.com great again.
So I'm not able to actually hear the website that you're saying. So can you spell that out for us?
bn.com, like Barnes & Noble.
Okay, yeah, bn.com. Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
So I don't know what's going on. I told you, if you're just joining us, the BBC is reporting that Julian Assange has been arrested in London, according to the BBC. Now, that also might mean that the United States. I've got a message here. The United States has requested the extradition of Julian Assange at this point. So whether or not that'll happen, I don't know. The timing of this is weird and suspect. It's just that's all I can tell you. We will wait and see what happens. Again, my gut is that because everybody's waiting on the FISA documents release. You have William Barr yesterday in front of the Senate committee saying that he believes that the Obama administration spied on the Trump campaign, and of course the left is losing their minds over that. But it's absolutely true because we've known this for a while. Whether you're talking about the illegal FISA abuse, or if you're talking about George Papadopoulos is talking to some Australian in a bar somewhere. You know what I mean? There are different ways you can spy. You can spy with a wiretap, like Trump said. He was spied on. Trump Tower was bugged. Or you can spy by actually sending spies, or you can spy by using a former British spy like Christopher Steele to write a phony dossier that the Democrat Party paid him to write. You understand? These are not, and it's so funny that Chuck Todd is out there saying these are conspiracy theories and this not true. And it's like, well, you have to say that, sir, because that's you're paid to keep people dumb and stupid. And the fact of the matter is, if it is true, then you're exposed as being a complete liar and a fraud and a phony. The Inspector General of the Justice Department does not investigate conspiracy theories. The Inspector General does not investigate conspiracy theories, and yet that's exactly what he's been doing for a while now, and eventually we'll get to see that report. Sorry, a lot going on here. Let's go to the debate on the House floor yesterday. It was the last day of the 92nd, well, it was the last day of legislating in the 92nd General Assembly. Here's Majority Leader, State Representative Marcus Richmond speaking for the anti-sanctuary cities bill that would give the state the authority to defund cities if they adopt sanctuary policies for illegal immigrants. Listen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, colleagues. This particular bill does not establish a new rule or a new law saying that the cities that decide to become sanctuary are suddenly going to do something illegal. It's already federal law to be a sanctuary city that you cannot do that. Now, let's face it, the federal law hasn't done a very good job of enforcing it. But we talked about all the constitutionality of this particular bill, yet why is it that suddenly anything this bill does is unconstitutional? However, if the federal government comes down and says we are going to enforce our laws and do something about sanctuary cities, what's unconstitutional about that? Nothing. The law already exists. We're saying, Arkansas, we're going to follow the federal law. And we're not breaking any constitutional laws by following federal law, doing what they say and what is already on the books. So I do not buy into that argument. And you're going to hear other things, too. You're going to hear about local control. Well, this should be a local issue. The state shouldn't be involved. We use local control on both sides to talk about everything. All I can say is, should President Eisenhower, should he had deferred to local control of Governor Faubus back in September 1957 concerning the immigration, our schools here in Little Rock? Nobody in this chamber would agree with that. But it's not about local control. It's about following the law. You'll hear that it's about racial profiling. And some are going to say, how dare you, Representative Richmond, bring up racial profiling? What would you know about racial profiling? And you're absolutely right. I don't know anything about racial profiling here in the United States. And shame on us, all of us, every single one of us, for not doing a better job, for not stopping that scourge that continues to divide us and separate us. But I'll tell you this, I do know about racial profiling overseas. I know about getting up every morning for 2 solid years and making sure, checking my calendar and making sure that I didn't leave the compound at the same time, that I didn't take the same route, that I didn't leave out of the same gate, that when I looked at the gardener who was looking at me, that his smile could not hide the hate in his eyes and that he intended to do me harm. So I do know about that. But this is not about racial profiling. This is about following the law. And of course, the other distractors, it's about immigration. No, it's not. It's about following the law. Now, somehow or another, if we're going to be found unconstitutional for following federal law, then we've got a lot of problems. And again, I know some of the argument, well, we violate federal law with our medical marijuana. Yes, we are. The people told us to do it, and we followed the people's direction. And we might have to pay for that someday in a bad way. It may be a bad thing that happens to this state eventually, only time will tell. And all I can say is if you want to make Arkansas a sanctuary city or sanctuary state, use the same process. Go out there and get it on the ballot. Pass it like they did medical marijuana. I encourage you to take that and run on that platform. Because the people of Arkansas don't want it. And I intend to listen to the voices in my district who are telling me, pass this bill. Thank you.
Representative Blake, for what purpose?
Questions?
All right.
Richmond doesn't intend.
All right, so we're going to stop right there. That's State Representative Marcus Richmond. So we've played for you 2 4s. That was Brandt Smith presented the bill. He was obviously for it. Marcus Richmond was for it. When we come back at 7:05, I'm going to play Democrat Megan Godfrey, who, by the way, it's kind of even a fluke that State Representative Godfrey's even in the House, because she beat Jeff Williams, and nobody really saw that coming. Republican Jeff Williams, was really, I think, had a solid voting record. Anyway, State Representative Megan Godfrey, she is actually very vulnerable to be, defeated this next election cycle. If a Republican takes a go at it, which I assume, she's from Springdale. I'm assuming that there's plenty of Republicans up there that would attempt to challenge her, or would challenge her to try to win. All right, so what do you guys think about this? I mean, the governor has said. Now, listen to this. I gave you the Democrat Gazette piece on this. Governor Hutchinson says he will make this anti-sanctuary cities bill law. But if you go over to KATV, they have a little bit of an interesting take. This headline by Zach Briggs of KATV reads, Governor Hutchinson signs DACA bills, plans to sign anti-sanctuary cities legislation. Now, I found that very interesting because, you see, in the photo here, you have Megan Godfrey applauding and standing right behind Governor Hutchinson, and you got Dan Douglas, and you got Greg Leding in this KATV photo, Democrat. I mean, just a lot of Democrats, and Dan Douglas, Joyce Elliott, she's a Democrat. Dan Douglas is an honorary Democrat, I guess. Anyway, so, he voted against the anti-abortion bill earlier in the session and then filed a bill for assisted suicide. So you're not really, anyway, that's pretty interesting. Speaking of vulnerable politicians, let me tell you. So apparently there were 2 bills that the governor signed on deferred action for childhood arrivals, otherwise known as the DACA program, in order to give people who qualify as DACA recipients to pay in-state tuition rates and the ability to receive nursing licenses. So, I mean, that's what's pretty interesting. That happened yesterday, as well as the governor saying, now I'm going to sign the Anti-Sanctuary of Cities bill, right? So, DACA, you got to remember this, DACA was created on June 15th of 2012 by President Barack Obama, okay? And he admitted in previous speeches that he didn't have the constitutional authority to do what Congress was supposed to do. Well, Congress didn't do it, and so then there is literally no statutory basis for President Obama to issue the executive order on DACA. And if you just take a look at the powers that are delegated, to the executive branch, it was completely unconstitutional. And yet the program still exists because we had a court decision. Remember, President Trump was going to make a deal on DACA. Remember that? He was going to give the Democrats what they wanted, and to my dismay, but he was going to probably get a lot of what he wanted too. And then all of a sudden you had that court decision that said that Obama was right, even though he clearly was unconstitutional. It was a liberal court, and then the Democrats didn't want anything to do with it after that. And really what the issue is that the Democrat Party would rather illegal immigrants, or would rather DACA kids who are now adults now, he would rather them, the Democrat Party would rather them remain victims so that they can use them to maintain or amass more political power in a new neo-Marxist oppressor victim scenario. They're more valuable to the Democrat Party. I'm just telling you, the Democrat Party doesn't actually want to fix DACA. The Democrat Party wants this problem to remain so that they can use you for political power, because the president wanted to fix this. But anyway, very interesting headline over at KATV, where Governor Hutchinson is signing DACA legislation, but also, and I thank him for it. I'm glad that the governor has said, not necessarily for the DACA stuff, but I thank him for saying that he will sign Gary Stubblefield's bill to ban sanctuary cities in the state of Arkansas. That is good.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
No problem. No. So B is in the boy and N is in Noble. BN.com. Yeah. So that's where you can get this. So go search for it there. Don't go to your normal Amazon because you're not going to find it. We're talking with Kevin Preislak. He's the author of the Mueller Report, the complete and final findings against President Donald J. Trump. Of course, most of the book has blank pages, but it's but you need to check it out anyway because
all your liberal friends will love it.
Yeah, put it on the coffee table. It's like if there's ever a coffee table book that is like, a troll trap, like you're literally trolling potential guests in your house, this would be good, right?
Oh, absolutely. Maybe you could get a liberal to laugh.
Oh, man, wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great? Let me ask you this, Kevin. You have a lot of liberal friends?
Oh, tons.
So
my wife is a liberal.
Okay. Well, so, what does she think about all this? Is she seeing the light at all, or is she still, buying the CNN propaganda?
Well, she now is an avid Fox News watcher. She was a Rachel Maddow watcher, and she has decided, since she believes that Rachel Maddow has committed a fraud against this country, that it's time for her to see the other side, and now she's immersed herself in the FISA abuse and the abuse of power by the government of the United States.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really good. I think there's a lot of people like that. A lot of people who maybe, consider themselves left of center, but when they realize they've been misled and outright deceived intentionally, a lot of people are coming around. And I've heard that for a while. And, then you got that report out from the Grand Rapids, Michigan rally where President Trump was. And now it's just a report, but according to the Trump campaign, they said they were checking people's phone numbers at the door, and that 34% of the people at that Grand Rapids, Michigan rally were Democrats. I mean, if that's true, that's huge news.
Yeah, they have one of the best data teams around. That's what won them the last election, was the ability to be able to not only get data but use it. Something that the Hillary campaign was unable to do. Especially, you would think that the Hillary Clinton campaign would be very good with data, except we now know that every form of data they had actually got breached. So I believe that number that was given probably by Brian Pascali, if that's how you pronounce his name, yeah. I think that a lot more people are pro-Trump than you think, and a lot more people are more embarrassed to tell people that they're pro-Trump than you think, probably times 4 or 5. Mm-hmm. So I think you're going to see Trump's definitely going to win Michigan. I think he's going to, clean house. I also think that William Barr is going to clean house. So I think you might see a couple people sharing a jail cell. Michael Cohen, obviously, is going to jail. I have a strong suspicion that Brennan, Comey, Clapper, and McCabe might be joining him, but we shall see.
Yeah. I was talking, matter of fact, I mean, that's not the last, you're not the first person to tell me that. We were talking with Arkansas's Congressman Rick Crawford, who I don't know if he said they're going to jail, but he definitely listed them and went over the DOJ bad actors on the program on Friday. And he's on the House Intelligence Committee with Devin Nunes, and of course now, unfortunately, the Adam Schiff. But I mean, if you start going through the list, you mentioned Comey, you mentioned Brennan, you mentioned Clapper, and then you McCabe. I actually think that if I had to pick which one was more likely to go away or to be perp walked, honestly, I'm going with Brennan, just because of his CNN presence and everything else. He was the most vocal, calling the president a traitor, and the fact that it was Brennan calling him a traitor, and that's projection and deflection. He's just projecting the very thing that he's probably guilty of. I got a feeling that it might be Brennan first, but that's just my opinion.
I think it's I actually think it's Clapper. I think Brennan's MSNBC. I think Clapper's the one that leaked to CNN. I think he's a CNN contributor. I think he's the one that leaked that meeting with Trump and Comey at Trump Tower to CNN. I think they know who these leakers are, and I think that they're gonna. You know who else I think they might have on leaking? I'm not 100% sure.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is hour number 2. Thank you so much for being with us. You found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are building a liberty machine here. We're going to take a break from our coverage of the 92nd General Assembly that's going on in Little Rock, or just kind of paused, actually. They took a 2-week break, but we'll tell you the latest on that. I got an email the other day with this headline in the, I guess in the subject line. South Africa's socialism began like current American socialism. Could it happen here? As I want to welcome to the program, we have a gentleman by the name and author, Ernst Roots, is on the program. Ernst, welcome, sir. How are you?
Thank you very much. It's good to be on the show. I'm very well. I'm speaking to you from Washington. I'm currently in the U.S., although I am from South Africa.
Ah, okay. So you're in D.C. right now. Okay, well, good. Well, I was wondering, what the time difference would be if you were. I think over in South Africa. If you were in South Africa, it'd be about 2:00 there right now. So your book is called "Kill the Boer." Am I pronouncing that right?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, so I don't know a lot about South African history, Ernst, but maybe you could kind of clue us in. The full title of your book, "Kill the Boer: Government Complicity in South Africa's Brutal Farm Murders." Now, the president actually tweeted about this, and the mainstream media here made fun of him and said he was saying something that wasn't true. What do you say?
Well, there's no doubt that there's a very serious problem in South Africa, and that's the reason why we're here. I'm from a civil rights organization called AfriForum. We're the largest civil rights group in Africa, and we are in D.C. at the moment to speak to as many people as we can about the crisis in South Africa and also why it affects the U.S. So there are two major issues here. The one is the violence that we see on South Africa's farms, the continued violence, where it's very politically incorrect to talk about this, but the reality is we've had about 2,000 people murdered on farms in South Africa.
10,000?
Yeah, it's incredible, and it's the most horrific methods of torture imaginable. We've had cases of people being tortured 5 hours long, tortured to death eventually. But you can't really talk about this because, I don't know, I think it seems like the victims don't fit the right profile or something. And then on top of that, we have this issue, and that's where the socialism comes in, with the South African government saying that, having taken an official position, and a motion was adopted in the South African Parliament that the South African government has to change the constitution to empower the state to expropriate or basically confiscate people's private property without paying them, without compensation. And this is something that's going on now. But the reason why this is important to the U.S. is because there's a whole bunch of other countries that are involved in some way or not, including, or that play a role in this, including Venezuela and Zimbabwe, but more importantly, including China.
Okay, so tell us about that. You mentioned those other countries. What do they have to do with it?
Yes. So it's part of well, let me start here. So in 1989, the Berlin Wall fell, and everyone, and that was the end of the Cold War, and it was broadly accepted that socialism and communism has been destroyed and completely discredited, and one author in the U.S. even called it the end of history, meaning that the whole world's going to become liberal and democratic now. And it turns out that's not the case, that there are many countries, and that there are more countries recently who are moving away from democracy, and also that socialism is on the increase in terms of the popularity thereof. And states, countries like South Africa and Zimbabwe and Venezuela, and who believe that the solution is just to give as much power to the state as they can, and then the state will decide on behalf of the people. And now what's happening in countries like in South Africa, and that we saw the same thing in Zimbabwe, is as the economy crashes or goes down the drain, we find that China then moves in to pick up the bill. So the bigger global political consequence here is that the influence of China is moving across, is increasing, is strengthening across the globe, and I think this is, or we've noticed that this is something that the U.S. should also take note of.
It's very interesting that you mentioned China. We talk a lot about China on the program. So that's already happened with Zimbabwe. I mean, China is, I mean, they from what I have read, they have claim to mineral rights in Zimbabwe. Do you think that's going to happen, or is it in the process of happening with South Africa?
Yes, it's in the process of happening. So there's a massive Chinese, there's not one, there's a few massive Chinese investment projects in South Africa where they're involved with the building of mining facilities and factories and a bunch of stuff. And of course, the South African government is applauding this because what they say is, no, this will lead to job creation in South Africa. But what they don't seem to recognize is that when China moves in, they don't employ the local people, they send their own people to. So we have this influx of Chinese investment and projects in South Africa. And so it is already happening. And we saw it with Zimbabwe, especially after the economy completely collapsed. South Africa is not, economically speaking, and in the same position as Zimbabwe was, although the risk is there that might happen. But we can already see that there's a very strong relationship between the South African government and the Chinese government.
I'm sure you're aware of this. We're talking with Ernst Roots. He's the author of a book called Kill the Boer. He's also the CEO of the AFRI Forum, which is a civil rights organization. Ernst, you know, I'm in the state of Arkansas, and we're broadcasting online and across and radio stations across the state of Arkansas. Would you believe that before President Trump was elected, Arkansas had inked some of these preliminary deals with the Chinese? We were going to give them our taxpayer dollars with the hope that they would move here and build Chinese factories that would essentially they would make money and send the profits back home to communist China. And as soon as Trump got elected and he started, you know, with the tariffs and the trade wars, all those deals kind of got put on hold. But, you know, just like what you're describing with South Africa and the Chinese influence, I mean, we have states here that are trying, you know, they're governors of states trying to make deals. And, I mean, it's very worrisome to me, given the fact that, you know, what's happening in Zimbabwe, South Africa, what's happening in the South China Sea, you know, this idea that somehow the Chinese communist doesn't really mean what communism used to mean, I think is not true. And I think, I don't know why anybody would want to do business with the Chinese in the manner, you know, like they're somehow benign or something. What do you say to that?
Yes, the strange thing, I think part of the answer to that question is what we see in South Africa is that the South African government or the ruling party is very much, strangely enough, they describe themselves as a nationalist socialist movement in the sense that they are African nationalists, but they give preferential treatment to people based on the color of their skin, but then also they are socialist in the sense that they want as much state control and the state to control the means of production, to use the Marxist term. But in countries like in ours, in South Africa, it seems like the anti-Western sentiment or feeling is so strong that they would happily do these type of projects with China, apparently oblivious of what the consequences thereof would be or could be. So we had, for example, we have this thing where everything is just blamed on the West, to the extent that it becomes completely crazy. Our ruling party in South Africa recently, I'm talking about 2 weeks ago, sent a delegation to Venezuela. They called it the hands of, or they used the hashtag hands of Venezuela. Then they came back and they went there to express solidarity with Nicolas Maduro. And they came back, and the spokesperson for the group said they were shocked at what happened, at what they saw in Venezuela. And firstly, they said it's actually not that bad, but they had to acknowledge that it is pretty bad also. So they had some conflicting messages. But then they said that what's wrong with Venezuela is actually the fault of the U.S. government. And there's no rational way in which you can explain that. It's just a blame-shifting thing where everything is just blamed on the West. And the more they blame everything on the West, the more eager they are to work with China in these projects back home.
Interesting. That's very interesting. Okay, so Ernst, let's get back to what's happening in South Africa in terms of the farmers who are having their land confiscated and the farmers who have been murdered. Are the authorities kind of just turning a blind eye to the violence? And is there a lot of racial tension there? I'm assuming the answer is yes.
Well, the answer is yes and no. So the vast majority of people in the country are white and black people are not racist, and they despise the idea of racism. But we see racism a lot in public platforms and so forth. Land grab is a major problem in South Africa. It's not necessarily the government doing the land grab. The government's in the process of basically empowering themselves to do so. But we do see that happening with criminals, coming to people's property, chasing them off, or just arriving there and then building houses on the property. And then we find sometimes that the police aren't prepared to remove them, and we've had to go to court on behalf of black farmers as well, whose property was just being targeted by criminal gangs. So we have the land grab issue in terms of criminals, invading the property and just occupying it, and then combine that with the government who's currently in this process of changing the constitution to make it possible for them to legally grab land, and then combine that with the violence that we see on top, where, as I said, about 2,000 have been murdered, and many of them are, as I said, tortured in very, very horrible and inhumane ways.
Wow. So why does the government want to take land, or why are they positioning themselves to confiscate the land? Or is the plan to give it to someone else?
Well, there's two reasons, I would say. The one is that they know that the majority of people in South Africa don't even think it's a good idea. Even their own voters, although people still vote for them because it's the party of Nelson Mandela and it's the party that fought against the apartheid system. So there's this, people vote for them out of loyalty despite their failures. But they have been failing, and they are failing more excessively and more visibly in recent years. And they need some form of a scapegoat. They need something to distract people from their own failures. So now taking the land is a new issue. They pretend like that's going to solve the problem.
Okay.
But then I combined with that is this typical Marxist way of thinking that the government is the people. So if the more power we give to the government, the more power that we give to the people. And the more we centralize power and the more the government decides on behalf of the people, the better for the people. And now the claim is that if the government takes the land, because the idea is not really, although they would say that, but if you look at what they actually do, the idea isn't really to give the land to people as private property. The idea is to centralize for the state to own the land. And then they believe, well, if the state owns it, then the people own it. Of course, completely oblivious to the important economic lesson that you need private property rights for the economy to flourish. That they don't seem to think that's important.
Wow. It's incredible. So they're wanting, I just to summarize what you said, they're going after the property of South Africans because essentially socialism is not working and they need to distract from the failing government. And so this is another step. It sounds like something out of the book Atlas Shrugged, honestly.
Yes, it does.
And again, back to the sub-headline in my email, South Africa's socialism began like current American socialism is happening now. Do you agree with that?
Unfortunately, yes. No, I'm not an expert on U.S. politics, although we see from South Africa what is happening in the U.S. And I think the reason why there's an important lesson to be learned about socialism from what's happening in South Africa. And what I'm about to say now is not my conclusion or my analysis. It's the actual words of the governing party in South Africa, which is a socialist movement. So they describe the strategy of promoting socialism in South Africa as a two-phase strategy. They even have a name for it. It's called the National Democratic Revolution. And phase one of this strategy is what they did in the 90s when they came to power, is to present themselves as being liberal, more classically liberal in the sense that they present themselves as being in favor of free markets, in favor of property rights, in favor of trade, and all these things that countries that are successful are built on. And if they present themselves as such, they get support by the people, and they also get international support. And then eventually, in doing so, they came to power. They became the government. And then according to their strategy and tactics document, what they call it, the second phase of the revolution is once we have presented ourselves as being liberal, and once we rise to power as a result thereof, and once we gain control of the state, then we must go over to the second phase of the revolution, which is to use the mechanisms of the state to promote socialism. And I think there is a very important lesson to be learned there, that socialists aren't necessarily outright aggressive socialists when they try to get power. When they try to get power, they present themselves as being much more moderate than they actually are. And once they get that power, then you actually see what they do with the power that they are given.
It's a really good point, and it's a really good warning. And everybody listening, I hope we take it seriously. Ernst Roots, author of the book Kill the Boer, Government Complicity in South Africa's Brutal Farm Murders, also Deputy CEO of Afri Forum. You can look him up. I was watching some videos on YouTube, civil rights activist. And he's in Washington, D.C. right now trying to educate, trying to talk to as many lawmakers as he can. Ernst, best of luck to you, sir. And I really appreciate you coming on the program this morning.
Thank you. I really appreciate you talking to me. It's wonderful to be here.
All righty. Be safe, sir, in your travels. Folks, we're going to take a break. The number 870-275-9799. When we come back, more on the 92nd General Assembly. If you are just joining us, the governor says that he will sign the anti-sanctuary city bill that passed out of the House yesterday with flying colors, but we will still bring you some of the debate coming up in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
He was the most vocal, calling the president a traitor, and the fact that it was Brennan calling him a traitor, and that's projection and deflection. He's just projecting the very thing that he's probably guilty of. I got a feeling that it might be Brennan first, but that's just my opinion.
I think it's I actually think it's Clapper. I think Brennan's MSNBC. I think Clapper's the one that leaked to CNN. I think he's a CNN contributor. I think he's the one that leaked that meeting with Trump and Comey at Trump Tower to CNN. I think they know who these leakers are, and I think that they're gonna. You know who else I think they might have on leaking? I'm not 100% sure, but I think they might have Adam Schiff on leaking.
Interesting.
Somebody leaked. So while Don Jr. was giving testimony behind closed doors, CNN was getting regular updates. And they say that Schiff was constantly leaving the room while Don Jr. was testifying. That's not a conspiracy theory.
Let's face it, times are tough for the Arkansas General Assembly. They're all waiting for the spotlight exposing public corruption to end, so they won't be under so much scrutiny. And during this time, what if you're a legislator and you need money? What if you're slapped with a huge expense? What if your check for consultant services is late this month? Or maybe you just need extra cash now until payday. When that happens, you can't wait. Hi, I'm Bobby Blackmail for the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank, your trusted source to over 135 lenders to get you short-term cash fast. Use the Arkansas Intralegislator Bank today, and you can have up to $12,500 cash in your checking account tomorrow. Dried up bribes no longer coming from Medicaid entities? Handled. Extra cash until your hopeful acquittal? Done. And you'll be surprised at how easy it is to get extra cash. Just be an elected official and be comfortable with the status quo, and we'll connect you with a fellow legislator who is ready to loan. It's quick and easy. And don't worry if you can't make the payments, because the Arkansas Intralegislator Bank is designed to help you get through these tough economic times. There are other ways you can pay off your debt, like by voting the way the establishment wants, or by rewarding some with committee chairmanships. So forget about overdraft fees and the spirit of covetousness that sometimes overwhelms the best of lawmakers. Just remember, the Arkansas Intralegislator Bank for short-term cash between colleagues when you need it fast.
Some transactions have long-term consequences.
Paul Harrell, parody.
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Welcome back. The vote yesterday in the House of Representatives. Well, if you go to the website, it's interesting because it's saying, 69 yeses, but I think it was actually closer to 71, 22 noes. But again, there was two pairs on the desk, so I think it was closer to 24. That's according to the, but because that's what they said. I mean, Speaker Shepherd's the one that said it. Brandt Smith doing a great job. Let's go ahead and get to State Representative Megan Godfrey. She's a Democrat. Go ahead, Joe. Play this. This was her speech on why we needed to vote no on the anti-sanctuary cities bill. She says because, the Bible. Listen.
Surprising to you that I've chosen to speak out against this bill today. Many people in my community have been watching it very closely and have reached out to share their fear and heartbreak over this proposal. I've spoken with some of you about this bill, asked you to oppose it, and regardless, as I felt repeatedly throughout this session, I'm grateful for your willingness to dialogue about this important issue. There are many reasons to oppose this bill. This bill has negative economic consequences for our city and state. Business community is opposed to the bill. There are significant concerns with legal issues and municipality issues. There are mayors all over the state who are worried about it. And it causes unease and hurt in diverse communities like mine and others all across Arkansas. But all of these concerns were raised in committee both days we heard the bill. And so my final plea to you to oppose this bill is to appeal to our common faith in Jesus Christ and to the values he taught us to champion as his disciples.
But apparently no borders.
Throughout the scriptures, our God of the Old and the New Testament was intentional to tell the stories in his word of welcoming the stranger and the foreigner, of creating sacred spaces of safety and warmth to those who were from elsewhere. Jesus taught us to love our neighbor and illuminated through his parables that our neighbors are those who look and speak differently, those who are on the margins, and even those who are difficult to love. And he told us that when we welcome the stranger, we welcome him into our cities. I'm not advocating that we shouldn't have policies and rules and laws. Those of you who made the arguments about the rule of law and the fact that we are a nation of laws are right. I agree with you. But we in this room are lawmakers. And if we are lawmakers who claim Christ, we can and should do the work of making just and fair laws that also embody the compassion of Christ and his command to welcome the stranger into our communities. I have tremendous respect for those of you in this room, and one of the most pleasant surprises of this session has been the very special friendships I've made with so many of you. And I know that I don't have very much political capital in this room, but I do think that I have your respect.
Stop.
And so the only thing I can ask
Yeah, I see this on Facebook, that it's crazy to hear a legislator speak on biblical terms when Godfrey votes against every pro-life bill. Yeah, matter of fact, Megan Godfrey tried to use her Christian faith to vote against a pro-life bill at the beginning of the session, and now she's using it again and again. Well, let's just talk about the Bible when we come back.
Everybody knows that that's why they call him Shifty Schiff, is because, people think that he's a leaker. So we'll see, but I think the first one's going to be Clapper. I think Comey, I read some reports last night that Comey's memos actually had like top level classified information in it, and that's a problem.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Comey seems to be the most nervous with his cryptic tweets of him walking in redwood forests, having some guy take pictures of him, and he's just like, so many questions. He's very interesting, and a lot of people, myself included, a long time ago, I thought James Comey was a good guy. Give him the benefit of the doubt. That is clearly not the case now. James Comey's in it for James Comey. I think everybody knows that now, and he's not a Boy Scout, and I think he's the opposite of a Boy Scout. And
go
ahead.
So the next time you have somebody on from Congress, I'd like to know this answer. So a lot of people don't know this, but congressmen aren't allowed to write. Senators could write books, but congressmen are not allowed to profit from an advance on books. But they can receive royalties on a real advance of books. However, those books have to go through an enormous amount of scrutiny. What I want to know is how Andrew McCabe and James Comey's book got through a legal read. I would like to know who at the Department of Justice read that book and approved those books for publication. Andrew McCabe, I'll give you a perfect example, right? It's a little inside knowledge in the publishing world that a lot of people don't know about. But the way around a lot of these loopholes is Andrew McCabe, for example, right? I don't think he discussed the 25th Amendment in his book, but he did discuss it on 60 Minutes. And once that 60 Minutes piece aired, and people saw that, Rod Rosenstein had talked about the 25th Amendment, as soon as somebody at the Department of Justice saw that, somebody contacted Andrew McCabe or Andrew McCabe's publisher, and see how quickly Andrew McCabe came back and said they misinterpreted what I said. It's because he wasn't allowed to say it. What he did to get around the text in his book, that it wasn't in there, was he went on television and said it. That's how they get around the classified information. I want you to think about this, right? He was talking about the Gang of Eight information. Like, he was talking about conversations he had with the Gang of Eight. The Gang of Eight is the most highly classified, people in all of government. So any conversations you have with the Gang of Eight have to stay with the Gang of Eight. So he was talking about conversations he had with everyone in the Gang of Eight.
Wow.
On television, right? But the Gang of Eight weren't even allowed to
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, I've got it. Sorry, this is just kind of a point of personal privilege. So, State Representative Megan Godfrey, now, at least twice that I know of, there was a pro-life bill, and she went to the well and cited her Christian faith as a reason why she couldn't support the pro-life bill that would make abortion illegal if Roe versus Wade is overturned. It was the trigger bill by Jason Rapert. And now State Representative Megan Godfrey, she goes down to the well yesterday to argue against the anti-sanctuary city bill, and once again, Bible dips. Like, I'm just going to had somebody, a friend of mine, just text me this. Just like, let's kind of dip into Scripture. Just like, let's put one toe in. We threw this meme up. Can we throw the meme up right now? Let's just go ahead and put it up. It may come. It may. It's going to go over my face. Yeah. So here's this meme. No, it's fine. Just leave it right there or wherever. Okay. Yeah. Put it there. So here's this meme, and it's the meme of a guy underwater who's labeled a Christian, and he's drinking a bottle of water while totally submerged underwater. And the bottle of water is memed one verse in the Bible app taken out of context. And then the rest of the water is literally the entire Bible. Okay? So let's, just if you're just joining us, I want you to hear Democrat Megan Godfrey, who surprisingly beat Republican Jeff Williams to get this seat out of Springdale. This is what she said, why you need to oppose the anti-sanctuary cities bill. Apparently, from only unless there's a verse in the Bible that says that it is immoral for governments to have borders or immoral for governments to have laws about immigration, and that law is not in there, or I don't know of a verse like that, but apparently maybe she does. Let's listen to what she has to say. Once again,
surprising to you that I've chosen to speak out against this bill today. Many people in my community have been watching it very closely and have reached out to share their fear and heartbreak over this proposal. I've spoken with some of you about this bill, asked you to oppose it, and regardless, as I felt repeatedly throughout this session, I'm grateful for your willingness to dialogue about this important issue. There are many reasons to oppose this bill. This bill has negative economic consequences for our city and state. Business community is opposed to the bill. There are significant concerns with legal issues and municipality issues. There are mayors all over the state who are worried about it. And it causes unease and hurt in diverse communities like mine and others all across Arkansas. But all of these concerns were raised in committee both days we heard the bill. And so my final plea to you to oppose this bill is to appeal to our common faith in Jesus Christ and to the values he taught us to champion as his disciples. Throughout the scriptures, our God of the Old and the New Testament was intentional to tell the stories.
We're going to stop right here before we go any further. I'm going to say this. Okay, you're going to have to pick a side, Democrats. Okay. Do you believe in your warped version of separation of church and state, or do you not? Do you want a theocracy, or do you not want a theocracy? I mean, that's the first point here. But you need to choose and at least attempt to be consistent. If you're going to say that we can't do this because of our common faith in Jesus Christ. Now, if that were a conservative that said that on another issue, liberals would be losing their minds. There's even some that believe that you can't be a person of faith and espouse it or reference it in any way as in your capacity as a state legislator or politician. There are some people that believe that violates the Establishment Clause because they're cuckoo. And then you have personally what I believe, and I talked about this yesterday when Judge Wendell Griffin went before the House Education Committee, and he said that the Establishment Clause means that you can't have a literary course on the Bible that's an elective in our school system. That violates, and that's not the Establishment Clause. One of two things, and I mentioned this earlier, but either there's really only one conclusion: the Founding Fathers violated the Establishment Clause when they wrote the Constitution. According to the way they believe the Establishment Clause is now, they had to have violated it because they put an exemption for Sundays in the document when it comes to the number of days that count against a president when he has to sign or veto a bill. So, I'm sorry. The Supreme Court is wrong on this issue. But anyway, Democrats need to pick a side here. This is a Democrat, Megan Godfrey. Now, let's get that out of the way. That's point number one. Now let's actually listen to her talk about that our God reminds us in the Old and the New Testament that we shouldn't. Again, this is a bill that would allow the state to defund a city if they adopt sanctuary policies, i.e., we will not cooperate with federal authorities. That's what all this bill does, is saying the federal law already exists. We have cities all across the country that are trying to ignore it, and all we want to do is make sure that Arkansas cities will never do what these other cities are doing, and it's already the law. What we're talking about here is complying with the law. Now, the Bible has a lot to say about the law and the authorities that God institutes. Okay, we may get into some of that scripture here in a minute, but here is Democrat Megan Godfrey.
His word of welcoming the stranger and the foreigner. of creating sacred spaces of safety and warmth to those who were from elsewhere. Jesus taught us to love our neighbor and illuminated through his parables that our neighbors are those who look and speak differently, those who are on the margins, and even those who are difficult to love. And he told us that when we welcome the stranger, we welcome him into our cities. I'm not advocating that we shouldn't have policies and rules and laws. Those of you who made the arguments about the rule of law and the fact that we are a
good thing,
nation
Megan, that's a good thing. Because if you were advocating that, that would be completely anti-biblical, right? Right? But isn't that what you're advocating? Or do you just believe that we have evolved as humans and that borders and immigration policy is just racist? You know? I mean, do you not believe in borders? Right? No, yeah, I mean, I've said this before, but man, can you believe how if you're going to go read Genesis and oh man, God kicked Adam and Eve out of the Garden of Eden, man, and you know what? There was a border there. I'm assuming there was. You know what I'm saying? Like that is so heartless. I really feel like the liberal left would have a problem with that these days. Or I don't know. I mean, you go look in the Old Testament about. Let's read some of this because I was trying to get. We can keep it just like it is. I was trying to once I heard her say this, I was like, where is she getting this? Obviously, she may be getting this from. I don't know where she goes to church, but maybe, there are a lot of churches who are more liberal in their theology. There are churches that are more conservative. There are denominations that are, can be on one side or the other, or they can be in the middle. So I decided to Google, and I found this. I found this headline from somebody who I've read the article that clearly, really is just cherry picking verses out of the Bible that she has no idea what the Bible says about how to treat refugees. Okay, now they say refugees. Here's one about the foreigner. When a foreigner resides among you in your land, this is from Leviticus, do not mistreat them. Stop. Have any of you been mistreating illegal immigrants lately? I haven't. Or immigrants in general. Yeah, immigrants in general. I haven't. I haven't been mistreating them. The foreigner residing among you must be treated as your native born. Love them as yourself. For you were foreigners in Egypt. Okay, all right, so foreigners in Egypt. So when the Jews were in Egypt, were they there illegally? Just a question. No, they weren't. They were granted legal status, and actually they became so prosperous that once, at some point down the road, there was a pharaoh who knew not Joseph. This is the text, who knew not Joseph, and then they were targeted, then they were made slaves because they were foreigners who were there legally and began to prosper, okay? That's actual oppression, okay? But that verse doesn't apply to what we're talking about here because we're not talking about, foreigners who are here in mass violating laws. And then you go down the road, and listen to this. At one point, they quote from Corinthians here in this terrible article. And this is the kind of weird, hang on a second, where is it? Yeah, 1 Corinthians. Listen to this. In this article about how to treat immigrants, okay, it's over at relevantmagazine.com. This is very irrelevant. They cite 1 Corinthians 12 through 14. Just as a body, though one, has many parts, but all its many parts form one body, so it is with Christ. For we were all baptized by one Spirit, so as to form one body, whether Jews or Gentiles, slave or free, and we were all given the one Spirit to drink. Even so, the body is not made up of one part, but of many. Now, this is actually proving my point, meaning my point would be, oh, well, so you can be a Christian and be in Mexico. You know what I'm saying? But this is being used on some liberal website saying, well, this means that what does this mean? Does that mean we shouldn't have borders? It applies so heavily to this. Yeah, I know, and we have this amazing meme up, and it really is perfect because this is exactly. I mean, I was just all you could do yesterday in the gallery when Megan Godfrey was was saying these things would just shake your head, and just really, it's just sad, honestly. But it's go ahead, Joe. What were you going to say? Okay. Well, so we've got this meme up again. Some guy underwater drinking a bottle of water who's a Christian. The bottle of water is one verse in the Bible taken out of context versus the entire ocean that he's under, which is the entire Bible, and that's what we have here. Let's pick up. Here's Megan Godfrey again yesterday.
Laws are right. I agree with you. But we in this room are lawmakers. And if we are lawmakers who claim Christ, we can and should do the work of making just and fair laws that also embody the compassion of Christ and his command to welcome the stranger into our communities.
Stop. Well, I think
I have tremendous.
Okay, so Megan, then maybe you should go and try to run for Congress and go be buddies with Alexandria Cortez, because that's the only way that you're going to abolish our immigration laws. Or figure out some form of amnesty or whatever it is that you're thinking of. But Nancy Pelosi is the one, Megan, who says that a wall is immoral. The Pope says that a wall is immoral when he is surrounded by these giant walls at Vatican. Okay? Walls are not immoral. Not wanting your city to ignore federal immigration laws is not immoral. This is not a moral issue. And if it is, it's certainly not one that's black and white where you can just point and say, well, Jesus commanded us to love the stranger. Absolutely. If somebody comes up to me and needs help, let's say they come up to my house and they need help, I'm not going to ask and see, well, did you come here illegally? No, I'm going to help them as a believer in Jesus Christ. Absolutely. And you know what? If I didn't, then we could have an issue here, right? Now, what you want to talk? You want to talk about this Leviticus verse or these other verses about make sure you treat the foreigner. You were a foreigner in Egypt. Make sure you treat. Okay, I can give you a historic example of when that was actually not followed. When you had these massive legal immigrations from Ireland into the United States, and you had people that couldn't stand the Irish. They weren't kind. They were very unchristian to the Irish. Do you know why? Because we were Protestants and they were Catholics, and there was a lot of people were very weary, because the United States was essentially founded in Protestantism, and they didn't want this. And so, guess what happened? There was definitely, you're a foreigner in another land, and there was discrimination. There was all kinds of the same thing with the Italians and everything else. But those were foreigners who are here that built their lives here, and they were here legally. We're not talking about the idea that the state doesn't have not to mention you have Romans 13, Joe. Romans 13, which talks about how you need to be subject to the laws, and I'm paraphrasing here, but subject to the laws of the land that the Lord actually has put into place. Go ahead, Joe.
Romans 13, let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God. Therefore, whoever resists the authorities resists what God has appointed, and those who resist will incur judgment. For rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad.
Yeah.
Would you have no fear of the one who is in authority, then do what is good, and you will receive his approval.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So here's the thing here. In the context of our American government, it's slightly interesting, right? We have freedom to vote. We have a Constitution that gives us, God gives us the individual rights. The Constitution is there to attempt to secure these rights or protect them. But yeah, she is somewhat right here that we are lawmakers. Well, what is wrong with saying we don't want our cities to break federal laws or to enable the skirting of federal laws? That's all we're talking about here. And so, anyway, continue with her little speech here, and then I know we've got to go. But this meme sums up Megan Godfrey perfectly.
Disrespect for those of you in this room, and one of the most pleasant surprises of this session has been the very special friendships I've made with so many of you. And I know that I don't have very much political capital in this room, but I do think that I have your respect. And so the only thing I can ask with sincerity and urgency is that you would prayerfully consider opposing this bill. Thank
I
you.
don't doubt her sincerity. I just think she's completely wrong. And I think it's very weird when the Democrats, again, a party that, attempted to vote God out of their party 3 times, denied them in a massive way. And now we have Democrats that come. It was 3 times. No. I mean, I know. That's why it's so weird. If you go back and listen to that audio, the 3 times, I can't help but think of Peter either. Anyway. But that was State Representative Megan Godfrey, and again, that's now twice I've seen her come to the well this session. One was she cited Christianity as the reason why she couldn't support a pro-life bill, and now she's citing Christianity as a reason why we shouldn't pass an anti-sanctuary city bill. You're gonna, you're gonna need to. Maybe study the entire text, instead of, and it's hard. The Bible's really. This is what happens. This is the danger you get into when you try to take the Bible and apply it to the issues of the day. I'm not saying it's never applicable. It certainly is in terms of a code of morality and that sort of thing. It can work that way, but it also. I guess we tend to fall into this idea that we as Americans have never experienced what we're experiencing is unlike what other people have experienced, and that's just not the case. And Ecclesiastes, nothing is new under the sun. This is when you go down the territory that she's going down, and look, Republican politicians do this too sometimes, but it's very frustrating. And I don't know, Joe, I noticed you were reading the ESV just now when you were quoting Romans 13. No, it's not a problem. I'm just saying maybe State Representative Godfrey is reading the Message Bible. Did I offend a bunch of people? I don't know. Everybody's got their own little personal preferences on interpretations or versions. The Messages. Oh, what, Joe? What do you want to make? All right, we're going to take a break. Don't go anywhere. Back in just a moment.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. Are you a conservative-minded young person and want to let the world know about it? Are you tired of rolling your eyes as your professor regurgitates progressive, PC, neo-Marxist nonsense? Then you should interview on Conduit News Radio's Young Conservative segment and tell us about why you believe the way you do. Tell us how you came to be a conservative and what are your views on government. Now, if you're worried that your neo-Marxist professor may also be a right-wing talk radio listening masochist, then names can be changed to protect the innocent. It's the Conduit News Radio Conservative Future segment. To be interviewed, call 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, Contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Firm the fact that you told them that because it's highly classified information. How does Andrew McCabe get away with that?
Yeah, and continue, like you said, continue to profit off of the book as well. That's extremely valuable information. That's fascinating. We're talking.
That's what they do.
We're talking with Kevin Pryslack. Okay, he's an author, and the book is a satirical book called The Mueller Report: The Complete and Final Findings Against President Donald Trump. You can't find it on Amazon because Amazon doesn't like his book. So you have to go to Barnes & Noble to get it. Go to bn.com to search for this book. Again, his name is Kevin Pryslack. You can spell that Pryslak. And Kevin, it's been a great conversation, sir. I wish you the best, and I thank you so much for your thoughts this morning.
Thank you so much, and have a great day.
You too.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
I understand there was there a article, go to Kill Those Pods. Was there an article in the Gazette today? Well, we're going to have it on the show tomorrow. I think there was one from Acre. At least that's what somebody on Facebook said about how we've got to get spending under control. Something like that. It was in the Our Voices section. Is that what I heard? Anyway, I'm trying to find it right now. I haven't seen it yet, but here it's really, really good. So I want to remind everybody you can like the program on Facebook. Just go to facebook.com and /Conduit News, and we would appreciate that. Also over the YouTube channel, subscribe and click the little bell to receive notifications. Somebody's saying that they definitely know about being beaten over the head with scriptures coming from legislators. That's it's pretty funny. Telephone number 870-275-9799. Oh, here's the article right here. Hang on a second. Rethinking Spending. Let me see. Who is this? Let me zoom this in. It's by Morgan Burke, a research fellow for the Arkansas Center for Research and Economics. Okay, focus school funds on instruction, rethink spending, talks about the Arkansas K-12 student performance, how it's continuing to lag behind in academic achievement of other states. Arkansas's ACT test scores rank only 41st nationally among all states. Given the state's poor performance in providing quality education, policymakers in Arkansas increase spending on K-12 education. This extra spending will be more effective if the schools devote more of it to instructional spending. In 2018, Arkansas spent $10,039 per pupil on K-12 education. 56% of the funds were spent on instructional expenses, while the remaining 44% were spent on non-instructional expenses. Non-instructional spending is broken up into three categories. 20% of total spending covers items such as general administration, maintenance, and operations and student transportation. 18% pays for school support services, instructional support services, and school administration. Finally, the remaining 6% pays for food services, enterprise operations, and community operations. The portion of spending devoted to non-instructional spending varies across school districts. Anyway, we'll revisit this tomorrow, but that's, again, really, really good stuff, again, by Morgan Burke, who is a fellow at the Arkansas Center for Research and Economics that's based out of the University of Central Arkansas in Conway. Folks, all of you listening across the state, we really do appreciate it. We appreciate the time that you spend with us. We appreciate the value you see in this program. And we would just ask you to tell your friends, everyone in your sphere of influence, not only the information that you hear, but where you're hearing it. Get them to listen as well so that they can tell their friends and their family about what's really going on. Folks, Arkansas, we'll see you tomorrow for Johnny Cash Friday. Be safe.